I wanted nothing more than this family and these children and this secure job and this big home I have and all of that. And then one day, all of that feels so meaningless. I have done always what was expected of me, and now I want to do what I really want to do. If there is a taboo against infidelity, it's because somebody understood human nature. We are fickle, we are curious, and we are greedy. We are not generally meant to stay put in one place. There would be no taboo if there was no sizable threat. And what's more threatening than human nature?
Affairs are less about sex and more about desire, that the affairs sometimes are an antidote for death, that even happy people cheat, and you said the majority of couples with affairs actually stay together.
Yes. Of course, on the one hand, we know that infidelity is a leading cause for divorce, but there is much more infidelity than there are divorces. And so most people stay together, at least the first time around. I didn't write a book in mating for people who don't get along and also no longer have any sex together. It's the same about affairs. It would be easy to say, obviously people have affairs because they don't like their partner and because they have miserable relationships. No, if they do, they actually divorce these days. If they have affairs, it's because the relationship is good enough for many other things. And the easy thing would be to say, people have no sex because they don't have good connections. People have affairs because they have bad connections. That's true. But I see people after people coming in and say, I love my partner. The last thing I want to hurt is hurt my partner. That I want to do is hurt my partner. And I'm having an affair. That's a much more complicated question. Why would people risk losing everything for a glimmer of what? Mating grapples with the dilemmas of desire on the inside of relationships. And rethinking infidelity looks at what happens when desire breaks free. And in a way, it goes looking elsewhere. So it is a natural continuation. But the logical thing is to say people do this because they have problems in the relationship. It's the symptom model. An affair happens because there's a flawed relationship, rather than actually grappling with much more complicated imponderables of existential ennui and complexities of love and desire, by which actually affairs happen and sometimes they have nothing to do with the relationship. The relationship is actually perfectly fine. That's not what it's about. And then you enter into the question of transgression. After all, infidelity has existed since marriage was invented. So marriage has changed continuously, and infidelity has a tenaciousness that marriage can only envy. And so that's a line that has become very, very clear, that there's a robustness to infidelity. No single model of infidelity, of marriage, manages to outdo. It's like a race. No matter how much marriage tries to adapt to the times, infidelity tops it. There's always another way. So now we need to look at the power of transgression. What is it about us, from Adam and Eve on, that wants to break free out of the very constraints which we have sometimes created, which yesterday we thought were the ones we wanted? I wanted nothing more than this family and these children and this secure job and this big home I have and all of that. And then one day, all of that feels so meaningless. It's been the shackles. It's been the thing I wanted to break. I have done always what was expected of me, and now I want to do what I really want to do. And that narrative goes back to what I talked about when I spoke about what people regret when they die. You hear the conversation between the dutiful self and the selfish self, between the thinking about others and the thinking about me, and the places where they go together and the places where they clash. And so here is this thing called infidelity, which by definition is an act of entitlement and selfishness. But it has a lot more to do with what I do for me than what I'm actually doing to you. And yet, when it is uncovered, what it does to you is so shattering and so gutting, so painful, more so than it ever was. I am fascinated by how we one day want certain things and how the next day those are the things that we think are imprisoning us. How we can have multiple loves, how we can have different kinds of loves, how we became one person here, and then we remember that there are all these other parts of us, and they suddenly manifest elsewhere. How sexual revolutions don't happen at home, and how the same person who here is completely sexually shut down in this other place is lustful and free and eager, and why they can't bring it home. And all these imperfections, and in some level you would say that infidelity is an imperfect compromise to imperfect lives. We've always had rules, and we've always wanted to break rules. The rules change. And, let's be very clear, fidelity was an imposition on women in order to know about patrimony and lineage. Now that you can't prove it by the children, you prove it by the exclusiveness. But it's changed from an imposition on women to a dual gender conviction. Instead of giving more freedom to women, we've taken the freedoms of men away. I wanted a conversation that will embrace complexity, as always. I think I deal with subjects that are complicated and that people often want to simplify to make them reductionistic and simplistic, and are often very polarized. So the conversation about infidelity becomes a conversation about villain and victim and good and bad and perpetrator and saint. And I think it is not the truth. And I don't believe that these kinds of conversations that are polarized, that are extreme, in which you take the extreme example and you make that become the norm. And they breed narrowness, judgmentalness, and discrimination, and they don't help couples and families and children, that's for sure. And it doesn't capture the nuances of the human heart, which is really what infidelity is about. The question is not is it good or is it bad? The question is, what do we learn about love, lust, and commitment by studying infidelity? It is an amazing window, the same way that sexuality is a window, right? If you look at sexuality from a societal point of view, you would say that the most progressive aspect of a society and of a culture lodge themselves around the changes that take place around sexuality. Covering your head, abortion, nakedness, sexual education, homosexual marriage, all of these are around the sexual window. And the most traditional, archaic side of a society also lodge themselves. If you want to control a population, control the women, control what they can wear, how much skin they can show, what kind of interaction they can have with men. It is so foundational. It's almost amazing how little we talk about it when you see how essential it is to progress and change and to tradition and rootedness. And infidelity is right in there with that, because infidelity has been one of the ways we control sex. If there is a taboo against infidelity, is because somebody understood human nature. We are fickle, we are curious, and we are greedy. We are not generally meant to stay put in one place. There would be no taboo if there was no sizable threat. And what's more threatening than human nature? I was confronted with a set of assumptions. And at one point I began to think, maybe these are in fact exactly that, assumptions. They're not truths and facts, such as that when we love, we desire. That greater intimacy begets sexuality, always. It's the always that mattered. That security and adventure in a relationship, they go hand in hand. That if you have sexual problems, it is the consequence of relationship problems. Hence, if you fix the relationship, the sex will follow. And I am still very much a practicing psychotherapist, working with couples and coach, and I saw many couples improve a great deal in every area of their relationship, but it didn't necessarily change what was going on in the bedroom. So I began to think, maybe it's not so simple. To talk about people who don't like each other and lose their sexual and erotic connection is kind of obvious. What's to write? What I was interested in is all these people who come to see me and they say, we love each other very much and we have no sex. I know he loves me very much or she loves me very much, and it's been years since I felt wanted. And they knew the difference. And I began to think love and desire, they relate and maybe they also conflict. Let me go explore that. Why is it that people who continue to love each other as much as ever will also sometimes lose the very erotic connection that brought them into being? Why is it that good intimacy does not always guarantee good sex? In fact, quite the opposite. There seems to be a puzzling inverse correlation where greater intimacy sometimes leads to decreased desire, because what nurtures love isn't necessarily what fuels desire and may even be paradoxical. And can we love what we already have? Because in the romantic ideal, it's all about I have my partner and I... am the one and I am the chosen one. And so what does it mean when your partner is actually only on loan with an option to renew and doesn't belong to you? And what would it be like if we actually say, no, I don't have what I already want. Actually, we never have it. Hence, if we can live with that, we probably will want it more. That's the idea of this notion. It's an illusion to think that we have and then to complain of boredom. No, you don't have. In fact, your partner can leave any moment, from death, from illness, from falling in love somewhere else, from any other reason. And if you live with that, which is a certain anxiety that we don't want to have these days, because we have enough unknown and enough anxiety in our business lives and everywhere else. So our partner should just become a piece of furniture on which we can reliably sit and it will always receive us in the same way. Not true.